Alright. Think we're all set, so let us begin. Kicking off with an investigation. 2nd November, 3:38 p.m., Sholmes Suite. I still can't believe what just happened. I know, I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned. Damn, so we really just were rushed out of there, And it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to the hospital to recover. Right. "10 years ago now. Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the prison governor's office. Ever since then, he's completely blocked out the memory of those events from his mind. Nobody knew his secret, not his family, not even the man himself, but I forced it out into the open. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder?" Bruno! Oh, hi, Iris. Oh, Iris. You are miles away. Anyway, I brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you. Oh, thank you. You can see you had an exhausting day so far, haven't you? Oh. Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back in the defendant's antechamber, he disappeared. Oh no, I don't know. Well, he's off doing something. He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, "I must leave." I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of the Inspector Gregson's death. Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved. Did he say that? For the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else. What does that mean? He knows very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own too. But he just can't take his own advice and leave well alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him. That's so true. But that's what I like about Hurley, after all. I suppose that's a lot of the great detective in some ways. So then, let's have tea, and then I'll give you a hand. Oh, do you have time, Iris? Yes, I've finished this month's manuscript at last, with barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. You know, I've always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline. You do? Poor Mr. Sholmes. Man, he can't have his violin. That's cruel. I'm sure that's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you. Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before we continue our investigation. Okay. So, how'd it go in court this morning? Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened, but one thing's increasingly clear. Lord Van Zieks definitely didn't do it. Oh, goody. Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Oh, really? And there was another development too. Kazuma. Yes, it's quite clear now. That Kazuma-sama is not himself. Yeah, what the hell is up with him? The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's possessed. I know, I mean, at the end of the proceedings earlier, he was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. He's not normally so mercilessly persistent. What's going on in his head, I wonder? I really need to sit down with Kazuma and try to understand what he's going through. Okay. If Gregson was really murdered the day before his body was discovered, then Lord Van Zieks has to be innocent, you see. What? The day before? Well, that should be easy enough to work out. Just by examining the corpse, surely. Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report. This is curious. There are still unanswered questions about Lord Van Zieks, though, aren't there? Do you mean... I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street that day in the first place? Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he? And it turns out that little room was actually the Inspector's secret office. Oh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot. But then, why was that notice board in there covered in all those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper? I'm starting to get a bad feeling about all this. Oh dear, that sounds more like something horribly devilish. We must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late. Okay, what was he doing? I never imagined I might have to be investigating an inspector's movements. Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying out an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League before the day before his death. Oh, you mean he was doing the same as Hurley? Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating. I do wish it had been the other way around. Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil in possession of Gregson's identification. But how did he get it? You know what that sounds like to me? Establishing an alibi. Oh my, yes, you're absolutely right, Iris. But why would Gregson need an alibi? It would appear that the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret. I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips. Good old fish and chips. But perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar? I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies. Well, anyway, if Lord Van Zieks felt the need to investigate Gregson... Yes, I agree. We must try to figure out what he knows. Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Hurley yesterday? That's right. To ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her find the missing husband. Alright, no, I don't want to hear no cheating from you. No, not today. Please. No cheating. Not today. I can't. I'm not strong enough. Hi, Dio. That's right, to ask Mr. Sholmes if he would help her find her missing husband. Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, did you say that Mr. Vigil has been taken to the hospital? Too late. Yeah, I know. I know. Do you know which one? Ah, it's St. Sinners. I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down. I know that's the only one we go to. But that's amazing, Reno. You found the lady's husband already. Well, I suppose I have. By accident. And 10 years ago, when Mr. Vigil was chief warder at the prison, he was responsible for overseeing the professor incarceration. No! So when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed. Sometimes I really don't want to grow up. There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be a stand-in, to impersonate the inspector. To impersonate Gregsy? But why? I have absolutely no idea. Jeannie was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now. Including you, Reno. I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me. Yet. Could be better. Seasonal depression started to kick in. Oh, trust me, I am with you there, buddy. Trust me. I know exactly what you mean. But nevertheless, we push on. Had to leave work early. Aw, I'm sorry. Hope you're doing okay though, man. Take it easy for now. Thanks for stopping by though, and if you ever need to go around and do your own thing, feel free. Badadum, badadada wana. What you mean, badum? Yeah, I hear you badumming. What does that mean? Alright, this guy... No, John, you can't sing in chat. That's not how that works. Hello, John. What's up, bro? The Jaws theme. How am I supposed to tell from text? Now, if you actually were singing it, then I would be able to see it. Also, if it was the Jaws theme, like I think you need to drag out the A's a little bit more than that. Like, just 3 A's in the beginning of that at the start isn't going to cut it after that B. I think it should be 7. That means he has ties to the professor and to Inspector Gregson, though. So I do think we ought to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you? Jeez, everyone's a critic. Yo, especially me. How's the case going? Well, we just started. We literally just started investigating. I don't know how I could fuck up already, honestly. Yeah, back to St. Sinners then, the only hospital that we know of. Cheaters like Dom are always a critic. I'm only a critic when it matters. Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, isn't it? Let's investigate, my dear fellows. Oh, Iris, you're even more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson shooting iron will set them straight. Why do you have a gun? That water pistol? It's stuffed full of a piping hot extra special blend of mine. And I'm quite certain it'll be very effective. You're gonna give someone 3rd-degree burns with that thing. I better be careful not to hide anything. Well, it feels a little strange that Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still. Is that a fucking T-gun? I guess it is. Also, John, I have good news for you. Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be found, so you can go ahead and celebrate because you hate him so much. Let's go and see what we can find out. Yeah, because, yeah, Holmes is not here. I don't know where he is. Alright, well, guess we're going to... Oh wait, we can't go to the hospital yet. That's so unapologetically British. It goes from charming to grossly low-hanging fruit, then all circles back to being charming again. Yep, it makes a full loop. I could go back to my old room. 2nd November, Naruhodo's legal consultancy. And there's nothing going on here. My table is still a mess back there. I haven't cleaned it in over a year. But that's perfectly fine. Alright. Let's go here then. Oh, there's a boy. And there's big, tall, and scary. 2nd November, British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice's office. No arguments, Prosecutor Asogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear? Perfectly. It's Kazuma-sama. Defying Lord Strongheart by the sound of it. He never did know when to back down. And they noticed us. On your way now, Asogi. My lord. Hi. How's it going, man? You doing alright? Kazuma. He left without saying a word. What's up with him? Yes, what are you doing here? Oh, well, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions, if you wouldn't mind. I wanted Venzi's trial concluded today. But Prosecutor Asogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it longer than necessary. Unwelcome inquiries? As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 41 seconds. 42, 43. It's counted as this goes on. Then we must resolve everything before 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo. In a miraculous not even 5 minutes? Anyway, I can't let this man's obvious bad mood put me off. I need information. That's gonna be easier said than done. I have a feeling he is not gonna be welcome to that idea. Does Prosecutor Asogi believe that Lord Van Zieks is the Reaper? I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago, in that faithful close trial, that Lord Van Zieks made a name for himself among the judiciary. But the next trial he fought, he lost. It meant the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, thanks to all the jurors being under duress. But that's awful! The man's freedom was short-lived. He lasted just 3 days. Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe. Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believed Lord Van Zieks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. So he must have had a solid alibi then. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hand of the Reaper. That's a long run of coincidences. Well, the Reaper's true identity may be well revealed by this trial. And the impact of that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. Is that why it's a closed trial? Precisely. This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the Professor's? The trial of Genshin Asogi? Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zieks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are, 10 years later. With the son of the man Van Zieks had condemned now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. They do say that what goes around comes around. However, it would seem that the new young prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well. Kazuma is? I like my organization to run smoothly, in the exact manner that I prescribe. As with the grand clock here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. So that's what all the gears are about in here. If the young man refuses to mesh with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. What do you mean? Not something with which you need to concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered tomorrow. That's not ominous at all. Now, I shall have to ask you to excuse me. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours. Oh my, that is a long time. And I hold you entirely responsible. Even though we miraculously managed to fit everything in not even 5 minutes? I wonder if you might agree to us, talking with Prosecutor Asogi? Discussions between the defense and the prosecution outside of the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I want to make an exception in this case. Now go. You can find him in his office. Oh, thank you. Wow, I did not expect him to agree to that. Let's go see him at once. Mr. Naruhodo. Kazuma's my best friend in the world, but I'm really not all sure I know how to talk to him at the moment. Oh, guess we're just gonna have to wing it. Where is he? Oh, I can go to prison? Oh, here we go, here we go. Here's all the extra areas. Well, let's go in order. So we did mention going to his office, so might as well do that now. 2nd November, Prosecutor's Office. So, this is the office of Prosecutor Asogi now, is it? Yeah, it doesn't belong to Van Zieks anymore. Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself. Aww. Even though he always forced to kneel on the floor Japanese style in that dark corner. It's his habit to sit as a side wherever he's working. But where is he at? Well, looks like our journey here was wasted. The prosecutor appears to be out. Perhaps we should discuss things with another prosecutor we know first? Ah, I see. I was right. We do go to prison first. I'm going to jail. He's still sitting there reading his book. 2nd November, local prison cell 1. Lord Van Zieks is reading. Look. He doesn't seem like he wants visitors, does he? He never does. But he must have noticed we're here, surely. Hi. What do you Nipponese want? That's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. Hmm? I apologize. So, what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo? Lord Van Zieks, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow. This does feel very, very strange. I'm not used to him calling me by my name. I must say, I was impressed. Oh, well, thank you. Not by you, by your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh, I see. Yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, to be entirely at the mercy of the two of you. I suppose it's a retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. Played the part? You once told me that you gladly allowed the people to believe you were the Reaper, because it helped you reduce the amount of serious crimes that took place in London. If keeping quiet and playing the part befits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing, then why would I choose to say anything? Because the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day. And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone is clearly profiting from your silence about all this. Someone is using you. Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him. Or rather, expose the organization. It's a whole organization? It's inconceivable that all these accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, the Reaper always appears to have a very accurate information about the accused in each case, which can only mean that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved. Someone at... You can't mean... It's taken me many years, but I finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Tobias Gregson. What? No. No! Gregson, the Reaper? I mean, that does explain a lot, to be fair. So, the reason you were investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey is no single person. It's a highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. But there's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of that organization. I don't believe it. Are you saying that that he was behind all those awful crimes meeting their... Gregson didn't do the dirty work himself. Oh. He was the tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the marks and plot their assassinations. In order to do that without rousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi. Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, posing as the inspector. Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. So we don't actually know who carried out the killings then. Actually, I do have a name. You... What? Well, if you can name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already then. Or, if I can name the woman. Oh. She's a young woman by the name of Asa Shin. Wait, what? Shin? We've heard that name before. Oh my god, ain't no way. Miss Asa Shin, the true name of the identifying killer I knew all too well. I know only too well. She's the one who tried to frame me for murder at the very beginning. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Then, just when it seemed that diplomatic protection would help her escape Japan and conviction, the mysterious woman herself was murdered in a small summer beach hut. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey? Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss. No, of course not. I can't mention it here. The fact that she killed Dr. John H. Wilson. Because Iris doesn't know. It's very likely that the man was her father. Asa Shin. I should let father know at once. Yes, I agree. What do you have to say about your protege? Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Sogi. You say he's a friend of yours. My best friend. He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him. Yes, I understand that only the very best students are selected for such opportunities. And I have a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today. He missed nothing. In fact, his flawless performance very much reminded me of his father. Genshin Asogi, the professor. It's true that the aristocracy of that time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Asogi was carving out a canker from society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves. I see. But that's precisely why it makes no sense. Clint Van Zieks was a noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that damn Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life? In spite of having once saved mine. He saved your life? How did that happen? Don't think we heard about this yet. It was 10 years ago, on a foggy night. What was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital. So Clint Van Zieks had already been killed at this point then. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. All of a sudden... Don't make a peep, you're coming with us! Oh. We were surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, and their faces obscured by scarves. Clint was not only from noble heritage, he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and they had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I had been targeted several times before already. Yeah, it's Van Zeek's alright, we got him! I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come... If I let them kill you, Clint would never forgive me. It was Asogi's voice, just a whisper in my ear. Ooh. After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was a silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. He shielded me. 2 days later, they arrested him, on suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever, the Professor. How awful for you. All at once, I lost the brother I revered, and the foreign friend I held in such high regard. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. Wow. That is rough. That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone. Well, thank you for confiding in me. The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all are. I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper. Giving assassination orders to Giselle Brett. Mr. Naruhodo, let's go inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information. Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie! Hooray! Yes, alright. Let's head back to the Great Waterloo Hotel then. Okay, that's where we're going next. Alright, well, good talk, man. I'm sorry that... Oh, Jesus Christ, I feel really bad for him now. There we go. Let's see if he's in here. Gonna guess probably not. 2nd November, Great Waterloo Hotel, foyer. I thought it yesterday, and I think it again today. This place is so princely. It's a wild guess, but I have a feeling you'd think the same thing tomorrow, too. My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here, though. Wouldn't you say? Oh, look who we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure. There he is. Ah, Father. Oh, is that your daddy, Susie? How lovely. What a charming young lady. And you are? Ah, really? So you're the author of the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, are you? That's me, Iris Wilson, at your service, sir. Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know. Well, Mr. Wilson, I must say I read your work regularly with much interest. Iris actually lives with Mr. Sholmes, you know, Father. Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes. Hehe. You wouldn't be smiling so airily if you knew just how bright she is, believe me. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier. As an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery, after I had twisted some arms. And I must say, it was a truly exemplary performance. Oh, well, thank you very much. Although I'm fairly sure you omitted by Cosima on the end there. Oh no, please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me. Really? You didn't miss a step against Asogi, and we all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured into such a fine defense lawyer in less than a year is quite extraordinary. It's very kind of you to say so. And really nice to hear. What I saw in court today confirmed what I've been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo. I trust you haven't forgotten. Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you? But first, we have something to report, Father. Of course, of course. Shall we take to you while we discuss matters further? I wonder where Judge Goku has gotten to. Alright, let's tell you about what happened. Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey? I've heard of rumors. Some of the members of Judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course, when I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper has yet to emerge. Right, he didn't appear after all that case and when the visiting students had already returned home. Lord Van Zieks was in the dock today. That was Barak, the younger brother of Clint Van Zieks, I believe. That's right, and he was known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard, but the truth is, it wasn't him behind those mysterious deaths, it was somebody else. I see. So what you're saying is, there's a professional killer at work here. Exactly. Someone by the name of Asashin, in fact. I beg your pardon? Did you say Asashin? You mean that Giselle Brett woman who was responsible for killing my great friend? Oh no, a friend of yours was killed? Professor Mikitoba, I think perhaps we shouldn't discuss this right now. Because the friend of the professor the professor is talking about is Dr. John H. Wilson. That's not something we want Iris to find out about. Not like this, anyway. Ah, I've just remembered something. Biscuits. This hotel has the most delicious looking biscuits. That was rather out of the blue. She's doing this deliberately. I think I'll go see if I can purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh yes. You just try to leave me behind. So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she? Yes, that's right. And she's the author of all the adventure stories starring the great Detective Sholmes. But the name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see. Her father? Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yume University 4 years ago. But he was murdered last year. By Giselle Brett. Why? Why would the hand of the Reaper stretch all the way to Japan? Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father. Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I can say with some certainty that he was never the great detective's partner. So, it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think? Well, John and Wilson are both common names, after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure. And that's what we thought, yes. We're back! With cinnamon biscuits. Ooh. Oh, they smell delicious, Iris. I think cinnamon will go very well with the tea they serve here. Don't you, Susie? Yes, I'm sure you're right, Iris. Where's the judge at? I haven't seen Judge Goku for a while, have you? Guilty! Ha 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 ha! But that guilty is still ringing in my ears. No, now that you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, he'll He'll have gone to explore to the at the Great Exhibition. That reminds me of something you mentioned yesterday. About Judge Goku once having been in the dock himself? Ah, yes. He was all tied up with that accursed trial. The closed trial of Kazuma's father. Sashiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took to the stand to testify. But he got a little carried away and, actually managed to break the witness stand. Jesus. Oh my. He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged. Oh dear. Although it's really easy to imagine him doing that. Well, it was all alright in the end. He was acquitted and we returned home to Japan together. Thank goodness. Oh yes. Talking of Sashiro, I have a copy of that photograph we all took together yesterday. Please. Oh, what a lovely picture. It certainly seems to shout, "We have arrived in Britain." I'm gonna put it in my evidence for some reason. That's probably gonna be important somehow. None of us had any idea what was coming when we took that, did we? No, not. That's so true. And what's this favor? So, you mentioned a favor that you'd like to ask me. Well, this faithful trial that you're fighting, one way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan. You want me to do... what? Father, what's the meaning of this? Now, Suzuto, you should understand. You've seen how our courts work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense. Oh, you mean... The Supreme Court of Judiciary is in desperate need of a good defense lawyer. As soon as possible. Really quite urgently, in fact. But I have not even been in London a year yet. I've read of all Suzuto's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents. And having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs. So, you'd be leaving then, Reno? But then, what am I supposed to do, Father? You came here to serve as Asogi's judicial assistant. Oh yes, she's supposed to be Kazuma's assistant. Our government is still near the process of deciding how to best deal with his situation, though. You've always chosen your own path, Suzuto, and I trust your judgment. In this matter also. Father! Please, the pair of you. Don't look so downcast. It's merely a suggestion, you understand. A hope, if I'm honest, but I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it, and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes. Yes. All right. You won't leave, will you, Rena? Oh, she looks so sad. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Up until now, I've just been trying to do what I believe to be Kazuma's will. But it turns out that he's still alive, so... where does that leave me? Well, if you'll excuse me now, I need to telegram the government ministers and the Japanese police with the information about Asa Shin. Of course. Father, thank you. Look forward to our next month's installment, Miss Wilson. Oh good, and please do come back to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you. I would be delighted. Best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you? Yes, I will. Going back home. You know, Kazuma-sama has always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all this. Yes, no doubt. Asashin. Of course, it's so obvious. How could I have neglected to consider the possibility before now? Oh, there he is. Mr. Sholmes! Hurley, where have you been? Why, I joined you all for tea, of course. What an extraordinary question. I didn't notice you at all. No matter, no matter. Anyway, come to more pressing concerns. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. It is a matter of much urgency. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, to whom which I can entrust this task? Quickly now, who? Well... My father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself. I see. Well, he looked reliable enough for a bearded fellow. I don't think what father sports could be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes. There's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty unshaven father to see this sent. I will, but what is it? No questions at this time, if you please, Mrs. Ito. All we can do is pray that for once, my deduction is awry. Doesn't that imply that your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Sholmes? Which isn't exactly. Now then! You may be surprised to learn that I am a very busy man. I certainly have no time to hide behind the settees and eavesdrop on other people's conversations. So that's what joining us for tea meant. I leave the sending of this in your hands then, my dear fellows. And he's gone. Wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes! He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace. And left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too. I must catch up with father at the telegraph office at once. And I'll run and call us a cab. Straight away. And there was me thinking everyone would be clamoring to pay Mr. Sholmes' bill. Nope, I guess I'm paying it myself. No, we haven't gone here yet. November, 2nd, St. Sinner's Hospital, Ward 3. This looks familiar. This is the ward where Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently. To be frank, I'm a little worried about seeing him again. There he is. Ah, the lawyer. Hello again. Are you feeling better now, Mr. Vigil? Yes, thank you. Somewhat better. I'm sorry to have caused you I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things that you obviously try to forget. The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago, too. You just missed him. Oh, Kazuma beat us to it. He said much the same as you. He was very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought all of this upon myself. Please, don't think like that. Keeping it from Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well. You mean about your dismissal? Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident at all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as a stand-in. He was clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help. So perhaps Gregson knew what exactly had become of Mr. Vigil all along then. I'm sure that this is just desserts for 10 years of lies and deception, but it wasn't me that helped the professor escape 10 years ago. It wasn't me. I swear it. I swear it's true. Oh, Mr. Vigil. I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more from your past at this time, but if possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened? I want to. I need to get this off my chest. I just want someone to tell me what I should have done. Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know anything about. Details of the Reaper's marks, yes. It was when he had to carry out those investigations that it would take up... Oh. You pretend to be an inspector and carry out his investigations on his behalf? Oh no, never. A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. All I could do is get to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. Just something to leave an impression, so everyone would think a detective called Gregson was here. So that's what you were doing on the day prior to the incident? Yes. He asked me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Red-Headed League. So as usual, I flashed the inspector's identification around and was very vocal about my presence. But then you were taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters. Yes. So you would always make a point of showing Gregson's identification and generally being loud. That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes. Well, that's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though. And as you know, I suffered this bruising around my neck at their hands. But following the day, they kept their word and released me. Without returning the inspector's identification to you, however. We had arranged to meet in Fresno Street room at 5 that day so I could report back to the inspector. But at the agreed time, that was when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on 17th of June, 10 years ago. That was the time scheduled for execution. But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it? Or rather, the execution itself might have been used to effect the plan of escape. I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was. Barclay was renowned for having the highest security prison in the country. Everything that went in and out of the place was searched multiple times. But there was one noticeable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole. Something that was never questioned. I have a feeling I know what that loophole was now. The coffins into which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned convict, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. After that, no member of the staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When the executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside the chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had that confirmation, I went to the mortuary to find a lone coffin. As usual. The procedure was that I would sign the paperwork having checked the coffin, and then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. No! didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived. So you mean the coffin contained... Yes, I can only imagine that Asogi, having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside the coffin. The coffin was then taken out of through the main gates and deposited in Logate Cemetery. Presumably, there wouldn't have been much air inside to breathe for long. So in the early hours following the burial, somebody dug up the coffin again to set Genshin free. But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Logate Cemetery that night, I wonder? I'm afraid I don't really know. All I can say with certainty are two things. Asogi couldn't have possibly escaped that way without help from somebody working in the prison. And that somebody was not me. Curious. Obviously you knew the man then. The professor, I mean. Genshin Asogi? Yes. I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? Well, having been condemned to death as he was, any contact I have with the man was short, obviously. After that trial, which was carried out behind closed doors, attended only by the elite members of the judiciary, they called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of the trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it? It was a time of delicate diplomacy, when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. That meant that this potentially establishing the case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The man had less than a week in total. As I was chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. What do you mean exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman and a man of intellect. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe what he'd done, so I asked him one day. Those 5 members of the aristocracy whose lives were taken, were you really responsible? I'm guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. That night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual. Something unusual? What? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. Oh. As I said, it was on the night following his trial, after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed that he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand. Ah, his last will and testament then, presumably. As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoved it behind his back. But why did you find that so unusual? Isn't it normal for a man to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh? Yes, that's true. But there were special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see. What sort of conditions? Well, even though he was held in a cell designed for the condemned inmates, he was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception. Really? He was allowed his things? That is unusual, certainly. Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy, but at the same time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. The powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable. And what was the exception you mentioned to the personal effects he was allowed? That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper. So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what happened to him. Yes, that was the long and short of it. I have no idea where he obtained that paper. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back, and then he pleaded with me. What did you just hide behind your back? Please turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. But you know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen. If you just agree to keep quiet. Alright then, but what's on that paper? A last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. How can a will be a weapon? So I decided to pretend I'd seen nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, it just seemed to vanish without trace. What? What do you mean it vanished? It would seem that this isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will. I was the only person who saw Gasogi's will, but somehow it disappeared. It was after Asogi's execution, which was exactly an elaborate jailbreak. The warders gather up Asogi's possessions that were in his cell. They were all to be sent back to his family home in Japan, you see. To poor Kazuma-sama. And you're saying that it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? The will, I mean. That's right. Though I didn't search through them myself. But Governor Caden was livid. He was screaming, "It cannot have disappeared completely." That doesn't quite make sense though, does it? In what way? Well, we understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prisoner governor know to look for it? Oh yes, you're right! I really don't know how he knew, but it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Only he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was, the Asogi Papers. The Asogi Papers? I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events. Because, well, of what happened. Your dismissal, and the way you blocked it all from your memory. I've forgotten all about this until today. I don't suppose it's relevant to the case, though. Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful. I'm afraid there's really little more I can tell you. My wife Evie will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but... No, not at all. Thank you again. What will become of you now? Well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. I'm so sorry. Don't be, please. This was all my own doing. I always knew that this day would come. Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil. Poor guy. Before you go, there's just one thing. Yes? What is it? The Asogi Papers. I'd be very grateful if you make no mention of the things I told you about them. Presumably for some good reason? It's my understanding that the very existence is a closely guarded secret. If it became known that I remembered, Well, it could be rather troublesome, I think. I understand. Some sort of will that Genshin Asogi penned just before his death, which the man himself claimed was his last weapon. I wonder... perhaps it had something to do with his plan to escape. If there's anyone who might know about a document that Cosmo's father left behind, it would be Mr. Vigil's governor. Then we know precisely where we must go. Back to Barclay Prison. Man, I hate to leave him like that, but... a little more we can do here. Alright. Oh. Sorry, give me one moment. Oh.
My God! It's beautiful!
Hi, Jay. How's it going? Huh. It's so weird. Hang on. Okay. Alright, yourself. Thank you, yourself. Not too bad. Good to see you. Alright. 2nd November, Barclay Prison, Governor's Office. Ah, back again, are you? Yes, hello. I've heard all about your investigations. I read the report just now. You found him, eh, Vigil? Yes, luckily. Well, anywho. The laddie doesn't work here no more. So your case is not to do with Barclay. I wouldn't like you to get the wrong idea about that. Of course, yes. Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so... Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the chop. Aye, Kimma. You're getting very well. So, how about a wee handcuff biscuit? Delicious. Oh, they really look like little handcuffs. And hard as irons, too. So, what's brought you down here today? Well, there's something we like to ask you about, actually. Is that so? We believe there might be a document that disappeared from Genshin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something. Did I not say Grex's death had nothing to do with things that might have happened here at Barclay? Leave the past in the past, laddie. Let's not further about with irrelevant details. His expression changed completely. We're clearly onto something here. Yeah, I have a feeling this guy's not gonna talk to us. The murderer's botched execution, and the home miserable escape. They were Barclay's darkest hours, aye. Shocking embarrassment. Because the convict had a collaborator on the prison staff, you mean? Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the time of death after his execution? Courtney Scythe. And my chief ward at the time? Vigil, who was in charge of the whole affair. But Mr. Vigil says he didn't know anything about it. That rascal wouldn't say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs? Oh, how could I say no? You could never have too much iron in your diet. When Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what happened, he was so despairing, he jumped out of your office window, didn't he? I didn't like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Do you not think he would have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do. You wouldn't say otherwise, though, would you? Of course, I cannot shoulder responsibility myself. I shouldn't have let him deceive me. Actually, there's barely anybody that can, what went on at that time now. The Griggs having been murdered and Dr. Scythe forbidden from having any visitors. No visitors? Somebody obviously doesn't want her giving anything away. Well, we're not going home empty-handed. I wouldn't dream of sending you a packet without Gimma. Here, take a handcuff or two. Oh, well, it would be rude to say no. Wouldn't want to become anemic. What the hell? I suppose, if there's anybody that's still kind of brutal about what happened back then, it'd be that last from the forensics division. Maria Gorey. Maria Gorey? Aye, Sai's daughter. She didn't have it no more, just the one. But Louise Barnes following her mom's footsteps. You didn't ever see her without a scalpel in her hand. Ah! Mama, what is this? Where did she spring from? And did you just call the doctor Mama? Dr. Sai's daughter, Maria Gorey. We could do with talking to her. So, she's Dr. Sai's daughter, but her surname is Gorey? Aye, it's a family history, I'm sure, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. She grew up watching her mom work with the bodies of the folk who died in strange circumstances, and decided to do the same with her own life. I couldn't understand it myself. Perhaps she was driven by a deep respect for her mother. Perhaps. Anywho, she was in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe. Right, and the coroner responsible for this incomplete report. Someone told me once that the wee lassie always loved her mom's stories about cutting up bodies. There's even a rumor that she used to listen to the funeral march as a lullaby. Well then perhaps her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago. Aye, I'd say there's a fighting chance at least. After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us. We really need to speak to Miss Gorey herself about this, I think. Well, thank you very much. I'm not happy about any part of this. Took years for Londoners to finally forget the whole professor business. Can you not give up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions. I'm sorry. I don't like dredging up painful memories for everyone. Can you not just stay away now? Leave me alone and don't come back here, eh? Joke's on you, I have one more thing to ask you. How'd you come to know about that, laddie? There's no many folk in here, even the prison have heard of those papers. Well... Can't tell Mr. Vigil told me. I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir. We've been led to believe that the papers are actually a last will and testament. Is that right? The professors, or rather, Genshin Asogi's. Aye, that's right. You're well informed, Jimmy. Oh, is that the end of the silent treatment? But then after the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it? Heavens no, you're off the half-cock there. I think you didn't quite get your facts straight. It was in this cell, exactly where it should have been. Oh, not what we heard elsewhere. Let me just have a wee look around here. Sure I can find it. Hey, here you are. See? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi, written with a calligraphy brush. Of course, I cannot read a word of these Japanese squiggles, but I mind it says he leaves all worldly possessions to his son back in his homeland. Yes, that's correct. That's the gist of it. So these are the Asogi papers? Aye, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi. No doubt about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. That's your lot. After all your stormage of the Slanister of an execution, we send the man's possessions back to his clan in Japan, and that was the end of it. I think we ought to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo, just in case. Okay, the last will and testament of Genshin Asogi that Mr. Vigil claims disappeared after Convict's execution. Apparently Mr. Asogi described it as the only weapon I have left. One thing before you go on your way, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Those papers are not to do with Gregson's death. I prefer it if you didn't make no mention of them outside the office. Or rather, I would just prefer it. Consider an order from the highest levels of our government. I understand. Well, that's about all we're getting here. Can we look at it? I, Genshin Asogi, hereby request that upon my death, any and all my material possessions of and wealth belonging to me in London to be delivered to my son, Kazuma Asogi, in the Empire of Japan. It is with deep sadness and that I accept my fate in this foreign land, and the knowledge that I will never see my homeland or family again, but I regret nothing about my chosen path. Alright, so now what do we do? Yeah, maybe he's back. Second November, Prosecutor's Office. There he is. Kazuma. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. Well, I always believed that you fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. I just never imagined that for 1 second to be as a prosecutor. Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you. And I'm truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Ryunosuke, I always thought it'd be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal court system a little together. This isn't quite how I envisioned it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I learned a lot of things during my time in London, about how Suzuto-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with Judge Goku, and about what happened with your father. Then you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. It's getting on for a year now, since what happened on the SS Bureau. We were heading across the oceans from Japan to Great Britain, when a bizarre series of coincidences led to those tragic events. I thought I lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posse of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was at the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes. I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There was just this voice inside my head. You have something to do. You have to do. Something no one else knows about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on a deck, I saw that I was on a huge steamship and we were docked at a large port. It must have been Hong Kong. Yes, it must have been. Presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling that this was in some way my last chance. So I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so that I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. How did you get here? Just under a year ago now, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I had escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course. Oh, how terrifying for you. Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose. That's right. On the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling at countless ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. A formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and literally nothing to his name, but still managed to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I had moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So how did you end up becoming Lord Vanseek's apprentice then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard. And by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend a meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play. Would that have been your knowledge of the law? Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with the intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then, 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after the trial involving Drebber. Yes, I did. Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? 16 years ago, when my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. But what I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Suzato-san. Oh my. Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he told me. Oh. And then one day, a letter arrived at our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it assuming it was from an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Asogi name. Oh no! As a result of that letter, I found out what had been hidden from me all those years. Presumably, the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he would have been present at the closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth couldn't bear the resentment and was always going to be a problem. But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing? There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I've ever heard of the professor in this terrible killing spree. Well, what did my father have to say about that letter? I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because it deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jigoku. To the other visiting student. He faltered for the briefest of moments, but then he just laughed the letter off. But in that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily, before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asogi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way. Oh, Kazuma-sama. What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lawyering, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Lord Van Zieks isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was... It's clear that the Inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along. What? You mean you knew? The real question is, who's been giving orders to the Inspector? Yes, Barak Van Zieks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago, it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave. No, he was merely stating that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame. Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool that they use to do it. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life. Kazuma. On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. What if we show him the will? Kazuma, what do you make of this? There's only one place the defense lawyers and prosecutors should discuss evidence, the courtroom. So it seems you're still confused by the situation. That's what I make of it. I get the feeling my friend's always gonna have the edge over me, isn't he? Well, that didn't work. What the? It's a scale model of the crime scene. Oh, yes, I realize that. Does the prosecution office make a model of the scene for every single case? Apparently so. Sometimes it just helps to visualize things better and notice things you hadn't spotted before. Actually, the miniature notice board is my work. Be honest, you enjoyed making that. Can I shift over? Yes, I can. We can't really examine anything on this table, surprisingly. Alright, well, I assume that's all I'm going to get out of him for now, so... let's go somewhere else. Haven't gone back to the crime scene yet. 2nd November, room on Fresno Street. And doesn't look like anything's changed. Yep, that thing is still there. I never imagined this little figurine would have turned out to be a watch-winding key. I suppose it's a policeman, because the pocket watch was a gift from Scotland Yard. It seems that there was much more to Inspector Gregson than we ever realized. He was clearly a brilliant man. It's the fish and chips that threw us off. I feel as though it ruined his image. I really don't think we should blame one of Britain's staple cuisines. But think about it. Imagine it was Mr. Sholmes. How would you feel about, instead of the old briar pipe that's always in his hand, Mr. Sholmes had a bag of chips? Rather disappointed, if I'm honest. Exactly. Don't judge a man based on his fish and chips. What do you mean? Alright, well, I guess we just run around for a bit until something happens. Hey, Van Zieks, buddy, still angry in jail? Yeah, you're still angry in jail. Wait, actually, hold up. I think I know what we have to do. What if we go to the hospital bed, say hi to Mr. Vigil over here. Well, at least he seems to be on the mend. You know, as disguised as Mr. Gossip was quite masterful, wasn't it? I can't remember anything about it except a floppy lip. I imagine not even his wife would have recognized him. Perhaps, but he really did have to... Did he really have to take it quite so far? Oh, we can't talk to him. I was thinking of showing him the will, since apparently it doesn't exist, but I guess that's an option. What's up, Susie? Or not Susie. Iris. Susie, what she calls Suzuto. I'm getting the nicknames mixed up. Alright, now if I know anything about this case and how this game works in a nutshell, I assume Holmes is hiding somewhere. That's where we're gonna have to... Oh, I can't even look around in here. Bruh. Okay, I am running out of options. Did anybody come back in here? Nope. It is still empty. Very, very ominous. Okay, well, I'm not gonna lie, are you sure we asked everything we need to? I tried to, and then Cosmo's just like, yeah, hi, go away. I honestly don't know what else to show him. Because I thought for sure it would have been the papers. Well, let's take a quick look around everything in here, just in case. Do you know who the man in the portrait is? Why would I? What? But you're Lord Van Zeek's apprentice. Yes, apprentice, not friend. During the time I was suffering from amnesia, I didn't even notice that picture. Oh, really? I mean, it's not the smallest picture. Yeah, I know, seriously, that thing is taking like half the room. I wouldn't have the first idea what the man decorates his office with. Where's Lord Van Zeek's incredibly stylish desk? It's not my style, though. No, I noticed you've been working at the little table on the floor, kneeling down Sieza style. I thought it was some kind of punishment set up by Lord Van Zeek when I first saw it. I find it the most comfortable way to work. I can't do it. After a couple minutes of sitting with my legs folded under me, they start to go tingly. Don't exaggerate, Rinosuke. We both know you can't even manage a minute. Damn, why is Kazuma so mean to me, bro? There has to be something we have to show him. Alright, papers... No, we should show him a firecracker. You know, I'm gonna do that for fun. Kazuma, look at this thing. Kazuma, what do you make of this? It's just the same thing. What about the autopsy report? I mean, we were talking about this court earlier. Let's bring back everything we learned. Oh. This came up in the trial, didn't it? As something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on the Inspector Grayson's autopsy report. That is also true. We need to get a time of death. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea that the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch had stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility, and the evidence on the scene both point to it. To be honest, it bothered me too, so I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner was responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gori. If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner too. Of course. The last thing I want is for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Lowgate Cemetery. Lowgate Cemetery at Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated and robbed of his life. Kazuma-sama. Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Rinosuke. Jesus, that scared me. Hi Cam, how's it going, man? What's up? Good to see you, bro. I want to thank you. What for? Hi Dom. Hi Cam. For this. You safeguarded the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it is a famous sword that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is that I never got the chance to draw it before I returned it to you. Karama is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I come from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen. Well then, you're a chiv off the old block, I'd say. This blade, Karama, is the symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently, one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Really? Karama. It does sound formidable, that's for sure. 16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here in London, He had a sword forever at his side, which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again now too. And that is all thanks to you. It was an honor. Now, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much. Kazuma, you changed. No, Ryunosuke, I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zieks given what happened, but the fact is, those events in this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? What do you mean? Never mind. That man is the Reaper. It's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow, by whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. I know you'll do what you have to as a lawyer, but don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I would expect nothing less. Until tomorrow then, in the Old Bailey. Damn. Kazuma, you've changed, bro. Alright, sorry, give me one moment. There we go. Okay, where are we? 2nd November, Forensic Laboratory. This place really is creepy, isn't it? Well, being a dead room, it's probably full of spirits of the dissected. But actually, there's a rather pleasing scent of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room, the coroner probably needs a bold scent like that to mask the odor of death. Iris, do you think we could change the subject? Oh. I think I hear knives in the background. What was that? Oh. Dr. Gory? What? That noise before. I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them. Right. When following the collagen fibers in the dermis, an expertly sharpened scalpel cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration? Oh, yes, please. I love to see. Then, I think you'll do nicely. Huh? No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, maybe some other time. Was that a tut? Hydrate? Okie dokie. Thank you, Captain. Appreciate you for looking out and making sure my throat doesn't get too dry. Appreciate it. Well, we came to ask questions, so please stop sharpening your knives in front of me. We actually have met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember. You're not dead yet. What? So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that. Well, good. Dr. Scythe has some scruples at least. Oh dear. It looks like she's not interested in talking to us, for the time being anyway. For the time being? You mean until we die? I hope that's a ways off. Well, sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Surely there's some less drastic way of making her listen. Well, can't we just show her this autopsy report and be like, hey, where's the time of death? Explain that. No, not move. This one right here. Explain yourself. Dr. Gory, we actually came here to ask you about this. He was very good. Good? Sorry? His skin didn't snag my blade once, and very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and the muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with. We can skip those details. But there is one thing about the report that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded a time of death. That's not my fault. Oh, that made me jump. Then please tell us what happened. Please stop sharpening your knives. So, why does this autopsy report include the victim's time of death then? It's really the most crucial detail. I was told not to write it. What? By whom? Male Strongheart, the Lord Chief Justice, he came here. Lord Strongheart came? He said from the witnesses' statements about the gunshot and the other evidence, it was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 p.m. on 1st November, when the gunshot was heard. But that's not the time of death you wrote on the report. You didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it? Dr. Gory, if you're hiding something under Lord Strongheart's instructions, then sooner or later, you're going to go the same way as your mother. Give it here, then. What's she scribbling so furiously? There. You've written... What she's written? Tell us. Indeterminate. But... that's it? What do you mean indeterminate? What do you mean by that? Why was the time of death indeterminate? When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh, so the time of death could have easily coincided with the gunshot when the gunshot was heard. But there was one small discrepancy. What discrepancy? There was some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat, and that fish had started to rot. What? If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off. Well, yes. What are you really trying to say? It's possible that someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death. Manipulate the... Is that even possible to do? Theoretically, if you were to chill the body on ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction. And if the overcoat wasn't on the body at the time, then only the fish would have started to rot. With today's science, it's not yet possible to determine if the body was chilled or not. But today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a corpse, it seems. But surely, to chill a corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. And I don't imagine many households in London are equipped with such a device. No, definitely not. But maybe in the factory? Or some other special places? I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow. What might the actual time of death been? I couldn't say for sure. But at most, it might have been a day earlier. No! In other words, it would corroborate your previous deduction, Mr. Arhodo. The Inspector Gregson was killed the day before his body was discovered, at a different location. Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility? He simply said there was no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity. Oh yes, one other thing. It's something the governor of Barclay Prison told us. He said that your mother, Dr. Scythe, was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution. The professor? Apparently you always enjoyed listening to your mother's stories about her work, so you're wondering if you might know something about what happened 10 years ago. That's not all Mama did. Sorry? My Mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks as well. What? Really? The brother of Lord Van Zeeks, the professor's final victim. The idea of carrying out an autopsy on a member of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But the detective in charge of the investigation insisted it, and it was miraculously authorized. The detective being Inspector Gregson, of course. Quite an accomplishment for one man. That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. And Mama was there for that historic event. What does all this mean? You know, that amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The professor and Clint Van Zeeks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table there. So this lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events. She really is proud of her mother. I wonder if you'd tell us more about what exactly happened back then, Dr. Gory? Can we talk some more? Yes, we can. The professor's execution was Mama's first big case. She had been in attendance at Barclay's prison executions chamber and signed the certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama's the best coroner in the world, you know. I was so proud of her. Aww. But the execution didn't exactly take place. No, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak. I didn't want to know. Oh dear. You found out recently, you mean? I believed in her and Mama, but now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her. You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? But that's because Lord Strongheart forbade you from including it. Just like Mama, I'm sure she was coerced by somebody too. Yes, that's my feeling as well. There's no doubt that there were powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been in on it as well. The big man with the little handcuffs, according to what he told us, he was tricked by the chief warder. He says he knew nothing about it. Of course he said that. I'd say the same thing. Just who was behind the jailbreak all those years ago? You mentioned the autopsy of Clint Van Zeeks. It was at a time when he was carrying out autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that's observed in our country even now. It turned out that he was the professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as a secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called Dr. John H. Wilson. That's right, my daddy! And there was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East. Wait, a visiting student? It must have been my father, Eugene Mikotoba. I had no idea Professor Mikotoba had been involved in something so important. But the outcome of that historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor. So that's how they came to identify Genshin Asogi as the infamous mass murderer. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us any more? Would you like to see the records for yourself? What would that be alright? What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them? They're filed under V at the back of the cupboards. with the other records from the last decade. Thank you. Let's see. Van Zeeks. That's strange. What, Mr. Naruhodo? They aren't here. There's nothing under Van Zeeks. There must be. Perhaps somebody took them away? No one's allowed to take documents related to the professor case out of this room. But you're right, they're gone. Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? Do you remember? It was... Oh yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. A consulting detective came one day saying that he elected to see the records. No, you don't mean... Herlock Sholmes was his name. Deep down, I knew this was coming. Do you think he stole the records? Oh no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right. Can it? Oh. Iris? Reno. I hope you don't mind, but... What is it, Iris? I just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm going to have to leave you now. Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then. Oh, no, there's no need. You and Reno can take your time here. Bye for now, then. Good luck. Wait a minute, little girl. Me? I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you? Oh. Have you, Iris? Yes, 2 years ago, when that detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too. That's the way it usually works, yes. Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry. I must dash. Wait, Iris. I brew up a pot for you when you get home. What's the matter with her? She's behaving really strangely all of a sudden. Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either. It's been quite a while since I had any visitors. That was really fun. But next time you come, I prefer if you were ready for dissection. I can't make any promises, sorry. It's a bit strange that the records of Clint Van Zeek's autopsy have disappeared. But I think we asked all we came to ask now. But, I mean, now what? Really don't have anywhere to go. Can't go here, can't go there. Oh wait, actually, this was like, do you know, I don't believe we visited this place for some time. Yeah, but there was nothing here. Oh, now there's something here. 2nd November, room on Fresno Street. Wait, are we sure there's something? This place looked the same. The police are still busily investigating in here then. But Gina's nowhere to be seen. Where is she? Yes, it has been blissfully quiet, hasn't it? Perhaps she's out investigating on her own. Practicing what her boss taught her. Well, I expect she'll be back before too long. Shall we wait? Actually... there's something different about this room. Yeah, that's what's different about this room. That's what's definitely different about this room. You're right, Jay. How could I be so stupid? Alright. Let's actually look around. We can always use the time to investigate more thoroughly. Alrighty then, let's poke around. There are the details of the cases stretching back over 10 years on this notice board. Yes, a history of Lord Van Ziek's defeat in court. I don't think that's an appropriate description. Although, when you consider everything on the board, it certainly is true. All the people that had a background of dubious dealings. And in the end, of course, the board itself concealed the inspector's own death. Oh my, it really doesn't bear thinking about. The photograph of Mrs. Vigil. Realizing the identity of this lady was a very great clue to exposing Mr. Gossip's true identity. He obviously loved his wife very dearly, which is why he felt that he couldn't tell the truth. The transformation was incredible, wasn't it? Just from that big twisted lip. Yes, he went to extraordinary efforts to play the part of Hugh Boone convincingly. Although, it didn't really seem like it was much of an effort to me. And now you say it, I have to agree. It's almost as if that was Mr. Vigil's true character. People are really hard to fathom at times. Don't I know it? Oh, the table counts as this whole chimney too, goddamn. This little trunk wasn't here before, was it? Oh, it appears to be made of metal. It must be very heavy. I wonder to whom it belongs. Can we open it? There are some initials on the outside. Look. TG. This is one of the policemen if they know how it came to be in here. Oi! What do you think you're doing? Oh, hi, Gina. That's in my trunk, that is. Hands off. Gina! What? Where were you hiding? I don't know. You leave something unattended for a few seconds, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got his gritty eyes on it. It's just a wild guess, Gina, but... What? Spit it out, Odo. Is it fair to say that you only owned this trunk since this morning's trial? What? What are you trying to say? Come on, this trunk goes with you ever. Always has? Where have you been the last year? Try not to incur your wrath, mainly. Hi. Talk about your boss. You should hear him talking at the yard now. They should be ashamed of themselves. The saying that it was the boss who killed all them bludgers. You mean the whole Reaper thing? Yeah. Apparently the boss was investigating stuff that no one else at the yard knew nothing about. Stuff to do with all the criminals who got off scot-free. Yes, the one prosecuted by Lord Van Ziek, who used bribery and corruption to evade conviction. Well then, obviously, it was that bloomin' Reaper giving the orders, wasn't it? But why would people be suspecting Inspector Gregson of being involved in the killings? There was a notebook hidden in his office. Oh no, this doesn't sound good. It had details about all the crimes that had been pegged as the Reaper's work. What? No. Did you see it, Gina? Did you see that notebook? They wouldn't flamin' let me, 'cause I'm just an apprentice apparently. But it was me who found it, and he was my boss. That's right. I was pretty miffed about it, so I sneaked a peek at what it said anyway. Oh, that's our Gina. What did it say? So, you managed to see what was written in Gregson's secret notebook anyway, did you? Way I see it, it's my right to read what he wrote. And what had he written, Gina? Dates, times, places, names, and a long list of them. All details about the bludgeons supposed to have to been done and right by the Reaper. But there could be an explanation for that. Perhaps it was a record of Inspector Gregson's investigations into the Reaper's activities. Exactly, that's what I said. That's the first thing you'd think, right? As it happens, it's full of names I recognized anyway. Well, the Reaper's targets were almost exclusively known as leaders of the London's criminal underworld. Well, yeah, but there was one name right at the end that was a bit odd. At the end of the list, you mean? At the end of the list, you mean? I'm pretty sure the date against it was 31st October. Oh, the day before the inspector was found dead. So, what was the odd name? It wasn't like a name I've seen before. It was something like, nah, it's no good. I can't remember it. I don't think it was an English name, to put it that way. Oh dear. What a pity. There was something else too. I don't know if it matters, but the same name kept coming up over and over. Shin, it was. Don't suppose it mean anything, but... Did you say Shin? Eh? What? Does it mean something? Lord Van Zieks knew the name too. He mentioned her as well. The woman who actually did the deeds. And now, we find out her name appeared in Gregson's secret notebook. We haven't seen you for a little while, have we, Gina? Well, of course not. I've been busy, ain't I? Investigating in that. The lads of the yacht are trying to trace the boss's movements the day before it happened. The day before. That would be the undercover investigation into the Red-Headed League, then. Only the boss didn't go, did he? You found some cove what was pretending to be him, didn't you, Odo? Yes, it was Mr. Vigil who actually went to the park on Lime Street that day, posing as Gregson. Well, anyway, you ain't the only one turning stuff up. I got my own ways of getting results. Oh, Toby! When me and my partner get together, there's nothing we can't track down. Oh, little Toby! He's such a faithful friend. So, have you tracked anything down then? What do you think, eh? Of course we have. Can't tell you though. Police business, ain't it? Anyway, the point is, if you ever need any help, you know who to turn to, right? Me and Hellhound here. Right, because he looks so hellish, to be honest. Gina, about your Hellhound there. No, I'm picking back up. Chief Inspector Toby, you mean? He's the pride of the force, he is. In Japanese, police talk means something quite different, and not altogether nice to those involved in crime. But here in Britain, it's a wonderful compliment, it seems, for a canine at least. It should be. After all, the great exhibition case the other day. It was Toby here who managed to locate Drever's workshop. Maybe it's time for another demonstration of what the super dog can do, eh? Do we have something the Chief Inspector could catch the scent of, I wonder? I mean, we do have his identification. Rather, maybe his watch? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Yeah, will that watch work? Well, Chief Inspector Toby, if you wouldn't mind having a sniff of this. Oh. He might be a little too keen, don't you think? Uh-oh. The Chief Inspector made short work of Gina there. Oh. Look what he's gone to. Watch is my say of those two. Yeah, looks like the watch was it. Oh my, that trunk clearly has very strong scent. Of Inspector Gregson. In other words, he must have belonged to him. Alright, it's a fair cop, I suppose. He nearly got away with it too. You always talk so proudly of Chief Inspector Toby's nose and what it can achieve. Did it not cross your mind that he might identify something that's right next to us? Yeah, that was a bit of a bloomer, wasn't it? That's enough then, Gina. Eh? I think it's time you told us the truth about that trunk. It weren't like that. It just weren't. What are you talking about? I know what's going through that head of yours, but that ain't what happened. Alright then. What did happen? Well, like I said before, we were trying to trace the boss's movements. So I let Toby here have a whiff of the boss's overcoat. And as soon as I did that, he went off like a shot. Straight to that sandwich. To a sandwich? Not to a bag of chips? Mr. Naruhodo, I believe Gina means the witness. Oh, I forgot about that sandwich. Yeah, he had to hit it between them boards over the boss's trunk. You mean when they heard the sound of a gunshot all piled in here? Exactly. He nabbed it from the scene. Goodness. Me and the chief inspector gave that sandwich a good grilling. And you know what he said? I thought I might fetch a good price and that shaft wouldn't be needing it anymore, so... But that's all I did. Nothing more. Nothing less. Would you have any of the cheek of it, stealing the boss's dead stuff to flog? So Miss Venus wasn't the only one to meddle with the scene of the crime, then? How could they? So anyway, that's how it happened. It's a pretty decent trunk, so I figured I might as well make use of it. Is something wrong with that, Well, maybe you and Mr. Sandwich should try to find the answer to that question together. Good job, Toby. Good boy. I think that perhaps the trunk should be turned over to the police, don't you? What are you on about? I am the police! Gina, if you wouldn't mind, could we maybe examine it? Yeah, alright then. Do what you want with it. Thank you. We shall make a detailed record of our examination of the evidence. I got a trunk. Oh, Toby mad. Toby angry. What's the matter, Toby? Why is he acting so aggressively towards me all of a sudden? Mr. No, be careful. Be careful. It must be the trunk. Ah, Toby! Man, I'm dead. Toby, oi, what are you doing? You're gonna lick his face off. Mr. Naruhodo! Mr. Naruhodo! Gina, quickly, hail a carriage. I died that day. Second November, 4:57 p.m. Naruhodo's legal consultancy.
You died. You suck at this game.
Damn, that's rough. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, are you alright? Miss Susato? Oh, hi, Holmes. Ah, conscious again at last. A blessed relief, my dear fellow. After all, to drop dead after being moderately licking by a small terrier, most unseemly. What is or isn't seemingly isn't irrelevant here, Holmes. I'm so glad that there's no lasting damage. How are you feeling? I'm fine, thank you. Do you bring me back here? Ah, what's this on my head? A bandage? We sadly had no ice, so that's a compress of sugar water. Sugar water? Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a first aid treatment that my father taught me. Oh, thank you. So, let's take tea while you're feeling up to it. When you're feeling up to it, but of course, no sugar in the patient's cup. Ah, the bump on my head is throbbing sweetly enough. Don't worry. Whenever you feel ready, then. What are you doing, bro? Thank you for your concern, Mr. Sholmes. My dear fellow, think nothing of it. I must say I was quite startled when I heard that you'd been attacked by a dog. For a moment, I feared the infamous murderer of so many had come back from the dead. You mean the professor? Fortunately, I see the prized throat is unscathed. That stiff, turned-up collar of yours has obviously afforded some welcome protection. Was I that close to death? All I remember is the dog licking my face over and over and over again. Well, if you wish to avoid such troubles in the future, a little mustard spread on your cheeks should do the trick. I should think that would balance the sweetness of the bandage rather splendidly. Alright, well, guess we just go downstairs. Oh, this is different. 2nd November, Sholmes' Suite. What on earth is going on here? Am I having a bad dream? Ah, no. It's an old German folk song. A rather fine rendition, I think. That's the least of my concerns. Iris? Iris, what's the matter? Who's that sprawling, that relaxed gentleman over there? Iris, is she even listening? Excuse me, sir. I do apologize for troubling you whilst you're singing so merrily, but would you be kind enough to explain the situation? Well, that worked. A crooning gentleman and a mute young girl. A rather tantalizing juxtaposition. And one that appears to have incited the gods of deduction within me to find their voices too. Mr. Sholmes, do you mean— oh boy, here we go again. The strains of reasoning within me are now playing as a delightful duet. One melody sings of a reunion full of nostalgia, whilst the other is remorse-themed about the great secret you're trying so desperately to conceal, Iris. She's turned as white as a sheet. So as usual, you've instantly seen to the very heart of the matter. By the time my own brief performance is over, I feel sure this gentleman's song will reach its finale. So then, to Music Land, where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony. Pray, do enjoy Herlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. We just had to do one of these before the end, didn't we? Firstly, we must consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly, he's a German with no grasp of the English language. As evidenced by the Germanic song he sings and his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So, why is the man here at all, and in such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, you need only follow that gaze of the bright young eyes to unravel the particular part of this mystery. For the reason the man's mildly wobbling is revealed by the herbal tea. You obviously offered the German guest a cup of your latest herbal blend. The tea's delectable flavor has made the man's spirits soar, and resulted in the joyful ditty tumbling incessantly from his lips. I eagerly wait sampling the flavor myself, that I may join the fellow in his state of elation. Now to the next question. Who exactly is the gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the setting? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin originated my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance. That might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was Wilhelm Grosshaus Sigmund von Umstein. Oh my god, what is that name, bro? The King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there can be no question. That mask belongs to the King of Germany. It would appear that His Majesty remembers the fine service I afforded him, and decided to show his face again, mask and all, to express his gratitude. A well-mannered monarch indeed, wouldn't you agree, my dear fellow? So the identity of the masked visitor is in fact my former client, the King of Germany. Indeed, his son is currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition. Why? Why? This guy's strong on so many levels, I don't even know where to start. Which leaves us with one remaining imponderable, yes, you, young Iris. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that knapsack. A £5 note, I believe. I must say, as your compatriot, I am deeply saddened. It would appear that you have allowed yourself to be bribed into silence by His Royal Highness, earning yourself some spending money in exchange for keeping quiet about the King's secret. And now, the final piece of the puzzle. What is the secret you strive to hide with your silence, Iris? Ah yes, we need only follow that brief involuntary twitch of your eyes to find the answer. You were attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. My favorite coffee cup, in fact. Or should I say, the handle of my favorite coffee cup. It appears that His High-Spirited Highness broke it in the midst of his hijinks. Which leads us to the sad truth. My favorite coffee cup has been broken by the King of Germany, and Iris, you tried to conceal it from me. I shall have a bill sent via governmental channels to the German royal family for its replacement. Oh my god. Thus concludes Sherlock Sholmes' greatest seduction, this painful puzzle. Bruh. Everyone's speechless, they don't even know where to begin. With your silence as well, the fellow's jovial warbling rather rings in the ears, does it not? Mr. Sholmes, I must say something does rather trouble me. Pray, Mrs. Otto, do tell. His Royal Highness... doesn't appear to have moved a muscle since we arrived. Ah, and you haven't said a word either, Iris. If Mr. Sholmes has it alright, you might as well own up to it now. Your reasoning is entirely without substance, I must admit. And one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Yet another grievance, Mr. Naruhodo? Surely not. Well, I actually read the story of the case recently, the one you were just describing, and according to that at least, it wasn't the King of Germany, it was the King of Bohemia. Goodness, was it? Yes, that's quite true. Master Gauntz, the prince, testified to that in court. In his words, I've come to see the Great Exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. I would ask you to keep that minor error to yourselves. It could easily become quite a scandal. I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, that it's our turn now to make some corrections to a number of minor errors that may have slipped in. Yes, even Mr. Sholmes is willing to admit he might be slightly wide of the mark this time. Although it's clear that Iris is definitely still hiding something. We need to find out the truth behind this mysterious scene. But one truth is uncontrovertible. Oh, I missed that part. So, shall we embark again? On a joint presentation of Herlock Sholmes' Logic Reasoning Spectacular. Now it's our turn. Firstly, we consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly he's a German with no grasp of the English language. As evidenced by the Germanic song he sings and his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So, why is the man here at all, and in such apparently high spirits? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, we need to only follow that gaze of those bright young eyes to unravel that particular part of this mystery. The reason for the man's irritating wobbly is revealed by the herbal tea. So what, it's some mix of herbs that gives you the urge to sing? Goodness, I should like to try some. And I like to hear your singing, but this man... Just how long does he intend to keep up with that tune, do you suppose? As I said, he's been stock still the entire time, and if you look closely, his lips aren't moving either. So I'm not sure what's really responsible for that spirited singing, but I suspect the answer lies at the end of Iris's gaze. Okay. Okay, look at the mask. We know this mask. Oh, you're right. So, does that mean... No, surely not. It couldn't be. Could it? No, it's most definitely not him. Oh no, of course it's not. Thank goodness. But then, why is this gentleman now wearing it? I'm afraid, once again, I really have no idea. Wait, this is a gamophone. Still rarely seen in our own country. The sound certainly appears to be coming from the horn. But machines singing, that can't be right. Science and technology are changing the world rapidly, Mr. Naruhodo. What's right is changing too. It's too much for my brain. Well, at least we found our answer. There we go. The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the gamophone. Indeed, for no well-bred gentleman would break into an obscure folk song when making a social call. In other words, this gentleman isn't singing at all. In fact, it would appear that the fellow is unconscious. The music seems to have stopped now. I ask you, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Why would I purchase a recording of that gibberish? How should I know? Well, never mind. On with the deduction. Who exactly is the gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the set? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin emerged from my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was Wilhelm Gottfried Sigismund von Amstein, the King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there could be no question. The mask belongs to the King of Germany. Although we've already established that it was actually the King of Bohemia, Mr. Sholmes intends to persist with this King of Germany theory for some reason. Come to think of it, young Prince was wearing a mask as well, wasn't he? Master Gotz? The boy who you had in tears? Don't remind me, or anyone else. Do you suppose all members of the aristocracy of mainland Europe wear masks? I'm sure they do. Well, probably, anyway. The point is, the mask doesn't belong to any king. No, that's right, as we well know, because we can identify the true owner of this mask. Yeah, it was a Sogi's mask.
Take that!
Yes, there can be no question. The mask belongs to Get Kazuma Sogi. In other words, my memory is sublimely unreliable. Only you could try to make that sound positive. Kazuma's mask had been languishing on this metal chest for several days. Though that doesn't explain why the gentleman is wearing it now. But it is now a simple matter to determine our guest's true identity. After all, the gentleman is unconscious. We need only excuse ourselves in advance, gently lift the mask and peer beneath it. I don't believe it. Father? I'm afraid, Mrs. Ito, you must be mistaken. No, I think not, Mr. Sholmes. Then it would appear that our logic of reasoning has once again revealed the truth. This mysterious visitor is my unconscious father, Yujin Mikitoba. Logic and reasoning, or just looking and saying? What is he doing? Which leaves us with one remaining imponderable, yes. You, young Iris. But your apparently inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that knapsack. So that's a £5 note sticking out from Iris's knapsack, isn't it? Oh dear, I can't be sure. Most money we encounter is in coin form. I know. I'm not even sure. I haven't even seen any banknotes here in Britain at all, have we? But anyway, Father would never pay money for Iris's silence. He certainly seems like the silent type himself, though, judging by his present state. There must be some other reason for Iris's silence, I suppose. Perhaps what Iris is trying so hard not to give away with her eyes is something entirely different. Can I look at it? Now that I think about it, Iris always wears that little bag on her back, doesn't she? Yes, that's right, though it's easy to forget about since you can't see it from the front. There are 2 little felt dolls attached to it as well. Are there? I had no idea. I don't ever remember seeing them there. Is it possible there's always a £5 note sticking out from her bag that I just haven't noticed before either? I couldn't say with absolute certainty, but I think it's unlikely. Well, I can kind of shift angles. The metal chest? It contains important documents, doesn't it? Yes, details of all the cases Mr. Sholmes worked on over the years. Written up by Iris's father, if I'm remembering correctly. Iris insists that this chest is kept locked at all times. She never once showed me inside. Well, its contents are invaluable to her, I suppose, and entirely irreplaceable. But look at it now. The catch is unlocked for once. Ah, so it is! That's hard to ignore. Very. I've never seen the chest unlocked before. the whole time I've been staying here at Baker Street. Can we open it? Or do we just have to roll with it?
Take that!
Now we just roll with it. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that metal chest. An excellent observation, for upon a closer inspection, there is something different about the chest's appearance. It's kept locked at all times, yet now the catch is open. Evidently, this has something to do with your refusal to speak, Iris. Yeah, but simple enough matter to incite you to speak, I'm sure. I merely need to open this chest. Here we go. No! Hurley, don't! Oh. Ooh! Oh man, he's dead. Mr. Sholmes! Mr. Sholmes, Hurley! So that's how that happened. He's dead. Damn. He dead. Never. Oh, Hurley, I told you not to open it. Ah, so you found your voice now, Iris. Ah! In other words, what just happened clearly reveals the truth here. Yes, the real reason for your silence up until now is... This is somewhat different to the usual dance of deduction you perform with Mr. Sholmes, isn't it? Well, he's left me alone on the ballroom floor, so I'm gonna have to dance the next part solo. Anyway, I need to get to the bottom of this, for my own peace of mind. Now then, Iris isn't usually the silent type, so... You mean you actually don't know the answer yet, despite knowing knowing the point of the finger before? Miss Izuto, sometimes a man needs to point his finger first and think later. Oh, well, if you say so. I think we better examine Iris more closely and try to rescue the situation then. I found a key. That's the key she's holding. Look! I'm sure that wasn't in her hands before, was it? No, you're quite right. It's appeared as if by magic. That's strange. A big old iron key. Where did it materialize from?
Take that!
Yes, the real reason for your silence up until now is that key behind your back. Ah! When Mr. Sholmes was thrown into the air before. Just before you called out to try to stop him, you slipped something out of your mouth. That something is the key now in your hands, no doubt the key to the chest. You're so clever, Reno. So now it becomes clear. Thanks to Mr. Sholmes' graphic demonstration, we can well imagine what happened here. But... Professor Mikotoba also opened that metal chest only to be punched into the air. And land sprawled out on the set. But wait, that doesn't explain all the facts. What about the stylish scarf, and the cup of tea, and above all, why would he be wearing Kazuma-sama's mask? Well, for those curious details, I can think of only one explanation. Clearly an unbelievable miracle took place in this room. Isn't that right, Iris? Consider how the room was arranged before the whole painful experience took place. When Professor Mikotoba opened the chest, completely unaware of what awaited him inside, the mask flung into the air just as he was, only to land neatly on his face when it fell back down. And the teacup's journey through the air when it ended when it caught on the unconscious professor's finger. You mean to say that stylish scarf is actually just a tablecloth? This is the great detective's office, after all, a place of miraculous deductions. Would you expect anything less? Yes, you're right. It happened exactly as you said. Brilliant, Reno. Thus concludes Rinosuke Naruhodo's great deduction of this punchy puzzle. Oh, nice. I got to do it for myself for once. So then, why don't I make a fresh pot of tea for us all?
Objection.
Oh! An admirable performance, Mr. Naruhodo. He's back up fast. But in the final act of the show there, you missed everything of importance. Mr. Sholmes, if you would cast your mind back to my earlier deduction... Iris, clearly you're hiding a great secret. Ah, she is? From the look on her face. Mr. Sholmes must be right. Whatever that secret is, the cat isn't out of the bag yet. So I put it to you again. You were attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. It really is a shame about Mr. Sholmes' cup. It must have been smashed when Professor Mikotoba opened the chest. Oh dear, so many things seem to have been broken there. But now, the deduction has taken a different direction. Iris doesn't seem to be trying to hide anything, hide the broken cup anymore. In other words, her great secret is something else. Let's put our observational skills to work here for the one final time then. Okay. Knapsack, coffee cup. Can we look at this? Mr. Sholmes' favorite cup, or what's left of it, just the handle. He was obviously hurled into the air with Professor Mikotoba. If only it had been the cup that caught on his finger before it hit the floor. Yes, but anyway, whatever Iris is trying to hide, it's clearly not this handle. I can look at this knapsack. Surely this time, at last, the knapsack is going to be the answer. I'm really not sure why you're so intent on showing Iris's back to be complicit in these events. Because it's a sizable bag, big enough to carry things around, Mr. Naruhodo. That's what bags are for. So, the knapsack might never see the limelight, you mean? I really wouldn't like to say. But there's nothing else. Oh, wait, no, there is something. Hang on. Hello. Ah, look, there. There seem to be more papers there. Is Iris trying to hide them underneath the tray? The insignia, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a Scotland Yard official document. What? But why would Iris have... We must ask her. An official Scotland Yard document.
Take that!
You were attempting to abscond with that case file. Iris, as you know very well, nothing escapes the attention of a great detective. Oh no. We visited Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory earlier today, and Dr. Gorey informed us that the autopsy report of Clint Van Zieks had gone missing. Clint Van Zieks, yes, I do seem to recall that some years ago I asked to see the report in question. You were with me, weren't you, Iris? You mean, it was you, Iris? So those papers you have there aren't... I'm sorry. Forgive me. Aww. Well, we found out where the file went. And that's that. In truth, I would have liked to have thought that I could have predicted the booby-trap chest. But it caught me completely off guard. I was very nearly the late consulting detective, Herlock Sholmes. I'm sorry, Hurley. So you mean this autopsy report really is... Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important. Was there something in it that troubled you, Iris? Not exactly something that troubled me. Something I've been looking for. When I saw this report, when I saw the writing in it, I knew it was Daddy's. The writing? Your father's writing? What do you really mean? Iris? It must be something that's hard for her to talk about. Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows. Mr. Sholmes, what is it? I feel as though the poor unconscious gentleman on the set has been somewhat forgotten. Father! Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? Would you be so kind as to lend him your bed? We must do our very best to make him feel comfortable, I feel. Oh, yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up. So will I. No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. We want Iris's brew to stew. Because there's no better way to make the professor uncomfortable than dragging him up the stairs like a trunk. I wonder, perhaps that was deliberate. Maybe Mr. Sholmes is making himself scarce to give Iris the chance to talk more freely. We must use the opportunity to talk with Iris and find out what's going on. Would you like to tell us about Iris? About your father? I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be a Hurley's partner. Yes, and the notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside that metal chest. That's right, Hurley told me, you see. He said that Daddy is somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. That's one way of describing it. Then, when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build up a picture in my head of what Daddy must have been like. Well, that's only natural. You're just like any other girl your age. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too. Well, that's only natural, I suppose. In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age, though. But there was one thing I could never find out. Daddy's name. His name wasn't anywhere on the notes he made about his work with Hurley. But then one day, that's what happened, is it? When you saw this autopsy report, you finally managed to work it out. Is that right? Yes. So it was the handwriting in the report that caught her eye. When I saw the writing on the report, I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself, because it was the same writing you'd seen on your father's case notes? Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report away. And even worse, I was told that the first and last time that was the first and last time we'd be allowed to even look at it there. So he decided to steal it. When I compared the autopsy reports with the case notes I had here, there was no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report read, Dr. John H. Wilson. So that's how I finally found out. I learned that Daddy's name at last. I see. Ever since then, I've called myself Iris Wilson. And that's also when I had the brilliant idea of writing stories all about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided then and there I'd write the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had quite such a deep personal significance for you. I could see why the autopsy report was so important to her now. And why she was prepared to break the law to get her hands on it. God damn. I must apologize, Iris. Oh. This is really all my fault. Hurley? I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I'd keep the details about your father a secret. I know. I've been very naughty. I'll take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gorey and apologize, I promise. Yes, we'll go together, I think. Then, let me look at after it for you until we get there. Okay. I must go and water my herbs, I think. I'll see you all later. Bye, Iris. Poor Iris. She must be feeling awful. I know that Mr. Sholmes is here for her, but still. Ah! How? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes? Oh dear me. So, you've noticed, I see. But that would mean... What on earth's the matter, Miss Suzuto? You turned white as a sheet. It's this autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo. The one from 10 years ago. The writing isn't Dr. Wilson's at all. Huh? What do you mean? How could you possibly know that? Because I know this writing very well. This writing is my father's. What? Professor Mikotoba's? Indeed, it's true. And now you know, my dear fellows. No, I don't know anything. What on earth does all this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Because the idea of it slowly forming in my mind is just too extraordinary to believe. Please, you have to explain. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotoba then? But that makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible, my dear fellow. Pray, take a deep breath and think again. Yes, you're right. In some ways, it actually makes a great deal of sense. It does? 10 years ago, when my father returned to Japan after his extended study tour in Britain, and prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotoba engaged? Ah, of course. He was an assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory, learning about forensic science. And as an assistant, he would have aided the dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into a full autopsy report. Once the work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put his signature on the document. In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be his signature at the end. I see. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick, you mean? She saw that, assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John H. Wilson. Which is very understandable, of course. What a complicated situation. But then who's your partner? Thinking about it, most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits. Yes, the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, written by Iris. And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. Most troubling for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about the supposed partner of yours? Did he really exist or not? Ah, so you've come straight to the point, I see. And please come straight to the answer. I believe Iris explained it all in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade, and the only person I could have truly have called friend. And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest? Absolutely, my dear madam. Absolutely. So, where's your partner now? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. But if this autopsy report and the records of all your old cases were penned by the same hand, if that autopsy report was written, though not signed by your famous partner, there would be only one logical conclusion. Pray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Yuji Mikotoba. In other words, Misuto's father. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? You are coming along wonderfully. You've hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say... Allow me to introduce you to my great friend and partner, Mikotoba. Professor Mikotoba! Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson? No, my dear, I'm still my old self. Yuji Mikotoba, your father. Oh, of course. This is obviously too much for Suzuki-san to take in. I must say, though, how my old friend has attained worldwide celebrity as a great mystery solver is the greatest mystery of all. I still remember the first time we met. Pray remind me. When was it again, Mikotoba? When was it again, Mikotoba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Ah, yes, quite. 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Sashiro and Genshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital. Some comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. But rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right, so I decided I need someone to share lodgings and the expense. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Sholmes, who found himself in a similar situation. I was a callow fellow back then, a mere shadow of a great detective you see before you now. I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for little gain. And the situation of our cohabitation led us to pursuing cases together, you see. Hard to believe. It was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Mikotoba's stay in Britain, the most infamous of cases presented itself. The case which you become rather familiar yourselves, the Professor killings. After that trial, Sashiro and I were summoned back home. Hardly surprising, given the circumstances. So there you have it. As you now know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest. This is just amazing. Professor Mikotoba really is Mr. Sholmes' famous partner. Father. Goodness, my dear. What a cutting look. As your daughter, I'm very proud to learn that you are the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery that I really must ask you to explain now. And that is? You know very well what it is. The unsolved matter of Iris's father. Of course. I almost forgotten about that one. I should have seen this coming, I suppose. Iris told us that all the notes about the great detective's adventures that are in the metal chest were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes? That is indeed what I told young Iris. But if you're Mrs. Sholmes' partner, Father, and you wrote all the case notes, then Iris's father must be you. Ah! Upon my word, Mrs. Sudito. You are coming along wonderfully as well. You too have hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. What you've always told me, Father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago, and you left me in grandmother's care while you embarked on your study tour in Britain. I've always accepted that, but all this about Iris... Oh, there it is. Suzusan-san's ice-cold stare. No, now hold on a minute. It was very complicated. I mean, it's really not what you think. Then perhaps you'd like to explain exactly what it is? There it is. Now the eyes go from ice-cold to red-hot, just before she... No, really, you've got the wrong end of the stick. Sholmes, say something, man. That's quite enough, my fiery fellows. Mr. Sholmes? When did he get all dressed up? Whilst I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past, Meadows and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion. But it's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go? Why, my dear madam, is that obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So get your coat, Mikitoba. The game is afoot. But, Mr. Sholmes, I really must give Suzuto-san a full explanation, I think. Later, my dear fellow, later. Our carriage awaits downstairs already. You haven't changed one iota, have you? I mean, really. I visited her home after 10 long years. When I opened that chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out. As if that wasn't enough, I eventually regained consciousness and plunged straight into all this. Father, please. Go with Mr. Sholmes now. What? I have no doubt that whatever happened, you were acting in everyone's best interest. I trust you, completely. Suzuto. And sending you the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together is more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams. Very well then. We'll speak again later. So, I believe our own work is done for the day. I wish you the best of luck for tomorrow. Yes, Naruto. Good luck in battle. And reaching a decision. A decision? About whether to go back to Japan, I suppose.
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself. It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth, and that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
Wow. All right. Well then, I suppose that's it for now. Yeah, I feel like we'll just end off for right now, so thank you all for coming, and we'll catch up again some other time, yeah? Y'all have a good night now.